We're live!
Woo!
Hello! Hello!
Are we coming through?
I hope so. We'll get my technical team to confirm that. Chat, yell at us if we're coming through loud and clear and all level and good. I'm just going to move things around. Rightio. So super professional and prepared as always.
It's really difficult. It's way more difficult than the podcast.
Yes. Yeah. Do you like the spooky borders? I don't know. You probably can't see them, Norm, but we've got spooky borders this time with bats and cobwebs and all sorts of fun things. Let's tilt that down.
Wow. You've been hard at work.
Of course.
So, welcome everyone.
Hello.
Before we dive straight into the top 10, can I say happy Halloween? I hope you're having a lovely Friday and a great weekend. Before we dive into the top 10, should we maybe talk about why we like this genre so much? Why we're so weird and enjoy it so much?
In the background.
A little bit of product placement with the Dells and with the Always Player One just up here. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Dice Tower, yeah.
Well spotted. And there's those are the core rules as well. This is actually the spare room, so it's just like a storage room. So there's nothing in here apart from like a spare bed and some junk. So I've done my best to make it look semi-presentable. Yeah. So Scruffy.
Hello.
Why do you like horror films?
I know, what's wrong with me? I think deep down I've always just had this urge, this unfulfilled desire to murder and kill everyone I know and love.
Emergency meeting.
Yeah, welcome to everyone. Welcome to everyone who is from Always Player One and anyone who isn't from Always Player One. Today we are just going to be talking about our top horror movie picks for the season and forever. We both absolutely love horror movies and we've been kind of fans of it our whole lives. You know, me and Norm met each other through board games, but we really bonded over horror movies a few times, and he's a fun guy to talk to about horror for sure.
As is Scruffy. Scruffy is very learned on the arts and such.
The arts. That's right.
And I like horrible things.
Yeah. Right.
No, I think the love started right when I was way back when I was young. There's something really exciting because I think you're always attracted to what you shouldn't have, you know. And my mum is terrified of horror films, and she would never watch them. But I was very intrigued, so I would always be like, "Mum, please let me watch Alien. Please, no, you're 10. Please, Mum, please." And a few times she gave in. I really cherish those experiences where she did give in. And some of the films that are on my top 10 are films that I watched as a child, have a new appreciation for as an adult, obviously. But that sort of excitement doesn't go away. And when we get higher up on my list, some of the films that do really well, especially my number one, are films that make me feel like I'm a kid again, with those really terrified in my chair, not really understanding why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. So yeah, always loved horror, always will. We'll get into specifics in a moment. I think it's a great way to look at social issues as well. Horror is a perfect way to look at current zeitgeist. If you want to see what the mood of the time was, just look at the horror movies that existed, you know. Just take George Romero's zombie flicks. You know, you look at Night of the Living Dead, and you can clearly see the civil rights movement in that. You look at Dawn of the Dead, and you see consumerism. You look at Day of the Dead, and you see the war on poverty or the war on drugs. Yeah, and it's the same all the way through. And I will look to unpack that more in a moment as we go through the top 10. But yeah, love horror. Do you want to kick us off, or do you want to carry
Yeah,
on from what I
like
just said there?
it made me think when you were saying that. Just want to quickly throw out that these curtains are hideous. You're quite right. These belong in a horror movie for sure.
Are
But
you referring to my
sorry,
curtains?
no, my. Oh no, I thought it was
You
my
ref-
curtains. Which were you talking about,
my
D
curtains are
Lacey?
pretty terrible.
Someone said nice curtains, so I'm assuming it was an ironic jab at my horrible brown things. But yeah, looking at
It
yours,
could be
Norm, it
my
could have
floor.
been.
It could be the floral
It could have.
ones. This is like I said, this is a spare room, so nothing's been done in terms of decoration in this room for years. So, apologies for that. Well, I'm not an interior decorator.
But no. When you were talking about horror, there, it just made me think, like, especially with childhood experiences, it does feel like. I mean, I don't know if this was the same for you as well, but Norm. So it was your
Well, fuck you.
But yeah, it does feel like it's kind of the first time. I mean, for me, it was very much a thing of independence that I used to stay up really late. I've always been a bit of a night owl. And even as a kid, I'd stay up late. And you kind of, at that point, are able to encounter some late night horror movies and things.
Mhm.
Which, yeah, it feels like you end up taking a real personal journey with them. Like every other movie or media experience I'd had up until that point in my life had been sort of curated by or watched with parents, and so in that sense, your hand is held with them, and it's a shared experience, right? It's very rare you'll watch something
Yeah.
without your parents, or even if not with your parents, with friends. Whereas horror was kind of my first steps into getting to know myself in a different way and access parts of myself I don't confront in real life, and that's continued obviously. But yeah, sorry your feed's a bit delayed, D Lacey. I'm not quite sure what that could be. Hopefully it all fixed. If it was Norm, it might just be the video feed coming through. So hopefully it'll balance up. Skype's not the best. Could be. But yeah, so it's a very personal experience, and some of those early experiences really kind of shake you up, I think, a bit, and you either love it or hate it.
Stick with
Yeah,
you as well.
yeah, for sure.
I can remember watching films with my hand on the remote, ready to turn it off.
Yeah.
But challenging myself not to.
Yeah.
Um, it's exciting. It's really
You kind of
exciting.
frame the world in a whole new way, don't you? And you see things that, yeah, especially if you watch them without your parents knowing, and you know that you're not meant to be watching them and stuff. It's fun. And then I suppose it kind of evolves from there, because it doesn't stay like that, does it? I mean, to some extent, you kind of get this sort of taboo feeling when you're watching it, but I think you kind of you get that gets replaced with something else when watching horror nowadays. And looking at the movies I like now, that they always have something a bit different, but it's always, yeah, looking at all my top 10, it's always capturing something deep down and different that I haven't encountered anywhere else, or in other films, or in other experiences in life.
Yeah. I'll tell you what type of horror does still make me feel like a child, moving away from films, is a medium that does it really well is video games. When I play a horror video game, I feel really terrified. I played a virtual reality like haunted house game once, and I was in the middle of like a VR center. There were like kids around, and I was like swearing, "Oh fuck!" It's terrifying. I just think that's a medium that. Sorry, my charger's not plugged in.
No, well, I'm glad you brought up video games while we're on this little tangent. One of the scariest experiences I ever had was playing Subnautica. Don't know if anyone's played that, and that is absolutely terrifying. Like, I've always had a bit of a thing with the sea and the unknown and having no idea what's below me. Like, one time as a kid, I swam out into this harbour, and it was just black underneath. Like, you couldn't see. You put your hand just below the water, and you couldn't see it if it was at your chest. You couldn't see. It was just dark, and I was terrified that someone was just going to grab me. Like, my mind was playing tricks on me. So playing that game, oh my god. Have you played Alien Isolation? I have not played Alien Isolation. No, have you played that one?
No, I'm really, really bad with video games. I barely play any. But when I do get the opportunity, I really do enjoy horror because of the immersion. I feel like it works even better than board games, even though board games are my love for life. I feel like the medium translates better to video
I think
games.
Monkey's got it. Pat, he says the scariest game was Tomb Raider on the PS1 when you see the dinosaur and the music starts. That was a shared experience there. Yeah, that was terrifying.
Should we dive into the top 10?
Let's do it. Horror movies.
Do you want to go first or second?
You go first.
Okay, so starting at number 10, I'm gonna. Well, first of all, before we dive in, how many crossovers do you think we're gonna have?
Ooh, I guess 3. That would be my suggestion. I think we move in very different circles with horror movies, and we prefer different things. But we do have some commonality for sure. And I was looking at my list earlier and thinking about this, and I thought, yeah, maybe about 3. I know for sure we have one shared one because you messaged me and said you forgot your list and you remembered one then and told me. So I know that's a shared one, but that's the only one I know.
I think we'll have 2. I'll be surprised if it's 3.
Bets are on. 2 or 3. Start a poll. Okay. I don't know how to start a poll. But
So number 2, sorry, not number 2. That's a bit of foreshadowing there. Number 10 is a sequel. It's the only sequel on the list, I believe. Let me just double check. No, it's one of 2 sequels, I suppose you could call it. It is a splatter film set in a cabin in the woods. Do you have any idea what that might be?
A splatter film set in a cabin in the woods. There's lots.
There is lots. It's Evil Dead 2.
Evil Dead. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, Scruffy. I took away your opportunity.
I watched that for the first time yesterday before. I think maybe yesterday or the day before, because I'd never watched it, and I thought the Evil Dead series might be on your list. I watched Evil Dead 1, though. Didn't watch number 2.
Okay, so there's a trilogy. So there's Evil Dead 2, and then Army of Darkness. And they all try to blend horror and comedy to varying degrees of success. That I would recommend all of them. But Evil Dead 2 is probably my sweet spot because it blends the horror and the comedy really, really well. There's laugh out loud moments, there's genuinely chilling moments and moments of suspense and horror. And there's really silly moments, you know. I'm thinking Ash with his possessed, chopped off hand fighting, choking himself, you know. Just really silly stuff. Sam Raimi is obviously a genius. The gore in that is fantastic. It's just a bit of fun, Evil Dead 2. And yeah, I think it just beats out some other really good films to make it into my number 10. Evil Dead 2, probably my favourite splatter film.
D. Lacey says it's the first film he ever watched, Evil Dead 1, I guess. And yeah, like I say, I watched that really recently. I've never been a big fan of possession and demon stuff, like with The Exorcist and stuff like that. It always the rules don't fit, and it makes me confused. It's like, well, why doesn't the demon just possess them all and win? Like, I don't get it. You know, the game theorist in me is like, ugh.
Yeah, Evil Dead 2 it doesn't carry on from Evil Dead. It's kind of a remake. So if you watch Evil Dead, the thing is, the tone with Evil Dead is it has lots of gore and it's kind of funny, but it has like a lot of horror. The tree rape scene in the first film, I'm thinking, is particularly gruesome, and I think it just kind of throws you off as a viewer. Like, am I supposed to laugh at this or not? Like, I don't understand. Evil Dead 2, it's a lot slicker in its execution, I think. So I would definitely recommend giving Evil Dead 2 a go.
Okay, yeah, you've took me around. I'll try it out. But, you know, demons, they're just so noisy, right? Like, oh.
Yeah. What's your number 10?
Hang on, I've lost my list. My number 10 is Ready or Not, very new one. Ready or Not.
Oh, this was like...
marginal for you, yeah?
Yeah, there was so many films that could have made my top 10. Ready or Not is fantastic, isn't it?
It's very good. I've got a spooky friend here. I don't know if you can see her. She's just hiding from cam. But I had Ready or Not as a marginal one that I wasn't going to bring up really. But then the more I thought about it, the more I thought I actually just had a lot of fun with it. Just want to throw it out now. We're probably going to hit a few spoilers in this stream, but probably want to avoid them for the newer films a little bit because, you haven't had a chance to watch the old films, they're fair game. But I don't really want to spoil Ready or Not too much if you haven't seen it. Yeah, I'm glad you love it too, Banana. It's a cracking film, isn't it? And I watched it fairly recently as well, and there were just some specific scenes that I think were genius and really well done. The nail scene was really, really good. I think that spoils too much. And my favourite thing... I don't know how to say it without spoiling it. I guess my favourite thing I'd say about it is that it didn't cheap out with the ending.
The ending is amazing.
A lot of films will not make a decision and kind of leave you hanging and go, oh, it's ambiguous. And I get so sick of those sort of films. The sort of Inception ending where, ooh, that is kind of the, I guess, peak of that happening in movies, and just people love it. I can't stand it. I think if you end a movie, decide on your ending and end with an ending. Don't just leave it open. No.
Cabin in the Woods does that really well as well.
Yes,
I don't know
Woods, which I'm sure we'll bring up later. But oh my god, Cabin in the Woods.
Not on my list. Yeah. Spoiler, it's not on my list. Yeah, but it's that does the same thing. Going back to what I was saying in our little blurb before we started about horror movies being a great look at the zeitgeist. If you consider that came out last year, the without spoiling any of the story, it's very much about the rich people being evil. And there was another film, Satanic Panic, which had the similar message. And you think, well, this is at the time 3 years into the Trump administration, and you think this is the type of horror movies that America is making now. It's not by chance. Horror movies always represent the national zeitgeist, and Ready or Not's a really, really, really good example of one that does at the moment. Hope I haven't alienated too many viewers there, but that's just true.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really good. It's really slick, and it has probably the I don't think spoiling to say it has one of the best final girl characters I've ever seen in any movie. Incredibly likable, which is rare.
I'm really glad that you mentioned it because I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't. It didn't quite make the list, so I'm glad it made yours.
Definitely, it's a cracking film. 100% recommend it.
Do you want my number 9?
Yes.
Number 9 is...
Yeah, I mean, just quickly pulling back to that, Banana's just said that it's a horror movie he's been able to watch with people that don't like horror movies. And I think that's a really good point. It is a real nice gateway horror. I watched it with my partner, who is a real scaredy cat with stuff like that, and she had a blast with it. And I think that's totally fair, that it isn't horrific. That's probably why it's not further up the list, because it is quite light-hearted in a lot of ways. Even though some moments are, pretty visceral and pretty affecting, it doesn't dwell on the gore to the point of a lot of horror movies do. So it makes it a lot more of a pleasant watching experience. I think that's fair to say.
I will say, when I watched it in the cinema, first time I saw it was in the cinema or the theatre. And my partner and I watched it together. And without spoiling anything, when the end happened, I was laughing hysterically. Hysterically, to the point where people were turning around like, what's this guy's problem? But I had a blast with it. Couldn't stop talking about it after I saw it. So I'm glad that, I'm glad you like it as well, Banana.
There's nothing scarier than going to a horror movie at the cinema and having the person behind you start manically laughing right at the end of the movie. I can't imagine.
But yeah, that's, yeah. My number 9 is Alien, the first one by Ridley Scott. Alien is obviously a masterpiece of suspense. And we just spoke about probably one of your favourite final girls. Alien has my favourite final girl. Sigourney Weaver absolutely nails it. Yes. Well, it's a great film. Sigourney Weaver's really likable. She's brave, like every final girl should be. And this came out at a time where action heroes were all men, And Sigourney Weaver is so much of a badass that the sequel is full on action and she's the hero all the way through. Aside from that, the suspense is incredible. The scene with the vent, I don't know how well you guys remember, but there's a scene in a vent.
I think you can. Spoil Alien at this point. Alien's been around for ages.
Well, they're looking for the alien, right? And they think it's below them, and they have like a monitor where it bleeps every now and again, and the bleeps get louder, and then there's the sound of heartbeat, and it's a really good use of sound. There's the music, there's the heartbeat, there's the bleep from the monitor. Every time I watch it, even though I know what's going to happen, I jump. It's like completely involuntary, I can't help it. And that's how you know it's brilliant, because Alien was one of the films I saw. I saw it when I was in year 5, which, if you don't know for how the school system works in the UK, that's about 10 years old. And it scared me then. It scares me now. And what makes it more special now as a grown-up is Dan O'Bannon, the writer of Alien, who's passed away now, unfortunately. Dan O'Bannon was a Crohn's sufferer, like I am.
Oh, okay.
And he wrote the chest bursting scene first. That was the inspiration for the film, and that came from the inspiration for that came from his Crohn's pain. He said it feels like something's trying to jump out of his chest. So for a film to mean so much to me when I was younger, and then me appreciate the filming techniques as an adult, and then for me to learn something like that means that this film actually has a really personal connection with me. And I love it a lot. And just get emotional just talking about it, actually.
Did you like the dinner table scene? Monkey brings up the dinner table scene?
Are you referring to the chestbuster scene?
I don't know. I don't know the film that well.
But, yeah. So, apparently, they didn't say exactly how much blood there would be. And if you look closely, you see one of the actresses to the furthest right before it cuts, you see her drop to the floor and she faints because she wasn't expecting there to be so much blood. So yeah, Alien is a masterpiece. Brilliant. I've had a really hard day with my Crohn's disease today as well. So yeah, sorry, talking about it now is making me a little bit upset. But what's your number 9, Scruffy?
My number 9 is a slightly more obscure film. A few of these films I've warned you on my list are a little bit more niche and unusual, so apologies if you haven't heard of them, but it's called Possum.
No, I don't know.
Okay, so Possum is... It has a lot of problems, like the ending I don't really like very much, but the entirety of the film is just concentrated dread. And it made me feel that level of anxiety and fear in a way that not many things have ever made me feel. Like, the thing kind of revolves around this guy who's carrying around a suitcase. And you're kind of always left wondering what's in the suitcase. And you're just kind of vaguely aware that it's something that is horrific to this guy, but could be completely not horrific. And there's... So the thing eventually comes out of the case, and you just get kind of more and more glimpses of the thing as the film goes on. And it kind of culminates in this scene where... I don't know. I don't know how much to spoil here. Because that's not really the ending or anything. But I kind of want to tell you what's in the case because it's important. And what's in the case... So shut off your ears and go la 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 if you don't want to know. What's in the case is a puppet. And the puppet is kind of a head and torso with like spider legs coming out from it. It's terrifying. It's a horrific thing to look at, right? And there's this scene where he holds it up in front of him, just this lifeless puppet, and he kind of brings it closer and closer to his face. And the whole time you're just like, it's going to kill him. It's going to fucking kill him. It's going to kill him. He's going to die. This is it. And I'm not going to tell you whether it does or not, or what happens, but just the feeling and that visceral dread at what is essentially an inanimate object that he's holding, even though I know it's a prop rationally. I can see that it's a prop, and even if it does CGI come to life or whatever, and for me that kind of just felt like the epitome of what horror movies can do and how they can make you feel about just an object, and just from holding a specific shot at the right angle, it was a piece of art. And if you're into a real slow burn thing that just makes you just constantly on the edge of your seat, I would really recommend checking out Possum. I should really get up a web page with it on just to show you the sort of.
Go ahead. That sounds great though.
Possum.
When was it made?
2018, a really pretty new film. Sorry, let's just put us down in the corner. Ooh, there's Possum, look. And I'm just going to lose our feed for a sec so you can see it a bit clearer. So as you can see, it's this is the kind of suitcase over here. Maybe we can get better pictures of it. Let's bring us back up for a sec. I'll find some good pictures for you. I don't want to give you pictures specifically of the puppet, but yeah, the puppet does look really creepy. Maybe I should. Maybe just for now, I'll give you a glimpse, and then I'll take it off. I just Google search for possum. Guess what I got?
Well, I'm sure it was the first result, right?
Oh God, yeah. There's just tons of the. Even now, looking at it, and he wakes up in the bed next to it with the puppet looking right at him. Oh, it's horrible. It's just gross. It goes to some pretty damn dark places in terms of the content with the finale and stuff. But do you guys want to see? Is it a spoiler if I show you what the puppet looks like?
What's chat saying?
Too late for Banana. I think Banana's probably already seen it. I'm going to flash it up on the screen. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Look away now. I'll tell you when it's safe. Look at that. Look at that. Horrible, beautiful image. Ugh. I can't get the size on that quite right, but let's just pull that down.
Brill. I like that a lot. Especially because I haven't heard of it before. Definitely want to watch that.
Okay, pulling us back up. Right, it's gone. Puppet's gone. Scary puppet's gone. Cool. Yeah. Ugh. Actually, you're not watching the stream, are you? No, I have to send you a picture.
No. Yeah, please do. Great. So when did you watch that?
Oh, gosh.
How long ago?
I think that might have been last year sometime. It was.
Okay.
I go through these sort of phases where I stay up late watching horror movies. I'm in one at the moment, as you know, because I watched that Evil Dead and stuff. But yeah, I really enjoy just having these sort of marathon binges of movies, and I always end up gravitating towards horror because there's something really nice about watching them late at night, and it's kind of a habit, you know. Yeah, quite. It's not a doll. There you go. I've just sent you the thing on Skype there, Norm. See what you make of it. But yeah, it's kind of like a habit left over from childhood, and staying up late and watching these scary movies. It's the best way to do it, isn't it? Like some of the best experiences I've had with film have been doing that. In fact, I would say on the whole, I almost always prefer watching films alone. Like, it's very rare I will enjoy a film more if I'm watching it with someone else.
Yeah, totally. On the same boat as you there. One thing just for picking what you want to watch, you know, and then there's the whole experience as well. I'm also quite a big fan of going to the cinema by myself. I guess it makes sense that we're solo gamers.
Yeah, it does. But yeah, I just want to circle back to that possum thing. I know that picture might have looked a bit funny. You can't really, unless you're watching it, get an idea of how that scene felt to watch, because the whole movie you've been wondering what's in there, and he pulls it out at that point, and there it is, and in its glory, and then he's just bringing it closer and closer to his face. It's something special.
Brilliant.
Should probably
My number
yeah, should probably
eight.
move on to your number 8 before I go on too much about my number 9 film.
My number eight is a body horror.
Hmm.
It's a Cronenberg.
Okay, is it Akira?
It's The
Oh,
Fly.
good one. Good one.
It's The Fly. So yeah, it's David Cronenberg at his gruesome best. If you
Oh,
don't
when
know
you
what
said
it's
Cronenberg,
about,
I thought you meant like Cronenberg monsters. That's what I thought you meant.
well, it's a Cronenberg
It
monster.
is, yeah.
Yes, David Cronenberg at his gruesome best. If you don't know The Fly, the basic principle is a chap invents teleportation. Upon um, testing it, a fly gets in and they exchange DNA. He slowly turns into a giant fly, or Brundle fly, as it's called in the
Mm,
film. Jeff Goldblum is perfect in
he nails
this.
it,
He is
doesn't
so absolutely nails it. The film does an amazing thing where there's very little death, in this film, but it's full of horror. It's grotesque. I've known people who have got up and turn it off because they don't want to watch anymore.
he? Mm.
You know,
It's
and
revolting, isn't it? Like,
it is revolting, and it taps into like fundamental fears that we have as people. I'm talking. I'm thinking specifically about the teeth falling out. That is like a common nightmare that many people, including myself, have.
definitely.
Um, and to see that on screen, it just is awful. It's horrible to look at, and yeah, I think transformation films in general are great catch-all metaphors. Werewolves, vampires, etc. I know the original Wolfman was inspired by the Holocaust. Um, the Fly, I'm not sure if there's a great, social justice issue at the heart of it, like there are in a lot of transformation films. But the reason it makes the list is because out of all of the transformative body horror films, this is the one I come back to and the one I find truly disturbing. Truly, that is disgusting.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of this I can watch, and I kind of get a bit of a sick kick out of showing it to people. Oh, you've never seen a fly? We should watch
Do you
that.
think it is because it's such a transformation from the glorious Goldblum into what he becomes?
Maybe, and the thing is, it's not just his
It's
appearance
his
that
likability, isn't
transforms.
it?
It's his Yeah, and his personality, his likability, everything about him changes. And there's kind of a really twisted. I think the most twisted moments is when he really enjoys it and
Mm.
embraces the monster he's becoming. Um, yeah,
It plays
that
with the idea of protagonist really well in that, I think. That, you're following him the whole movie and you're kind of cheering for him, right? Right from the start. And you're even on board when he does things like I was, especially, for example, the arm wrestle scene. And you kind of go,
yeah
yeah,
when
fuck that guy. Um, even though it's gruesome and quite a
mhm.
visceral, affecting moment. And you kind of go, oh, that was a bit far, but you're also still on board at that point, and you stay on board with him like right up until you suddenly aren't. And I think that's a really interesting sort of meta thing as well, where the kind of message is very much, you said it's not sociological, it's more sort of about self and about psychology and stuff, and about when does somebody stop becoming themselves. It uses all those sort of famous thought experiments and thought what do you call them, games where you imagine, if the Theseus ship thing, for example, where
Yeah,
it gets
yeah,
taken apart piece by piece, and when there's a certain amount, when does it stop becoming the original ship? Obviously, there's all that layered throughout, and it's the same thing with the protagonist. So he starts off as the protagonist, and at some point, he stops being the good guy. And where does that happen? And how not
yeah.
Goldblum does he have to be for it to for you to go, okay, he's a baddie now?
It's very interesting. And even now, having seen it, I still don't know where that moment
Yeah.
is. You know.
It'd be interesting to try and look
But
for
yeah,
them on a rewatching. Monkey's only seen the Simpsons parody of it, which
well, you get the general principle. No, it's so good. I think it's actually a remake. I think there was an original that I haven't seen, but yeah, it's when I think of David Cronenberg, I think of The Fly more so than any other film.
yeah,
You know, there are plenty of greats that people could point to, plenty of great films by Cronenberg that people can point to. But for me, it's The Fly. Love it.
brilliant, great choice,
Um, and that's
great
what's my
choice
number
for
eight.
sure, for sure. Okay, my number 8 is another oldish-y. It feels older than it is. I don't know how many people know about this film. It's called Cube.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
Cube.
you know Cube. I always feel
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
something that everyone try and talk to about. It's like nobody's ever heard of it. There's 3 Cube movies. It's 1997, so it's not as old as it feels. It feels proper 80s, I think, to me anyway. Um,
Yeah.
and
If that feels kind of Cronenbergy, the Cube, in my opinion, sort
well,
of.
Cube, it's
Yeah,
very
kind
high
of
concept, isn't
David
it?
Lynchy, Cronenbergy.
So essentially,
You
the
know.
premise is a bunch of strangers wake up in a room, like in a lot of horrors, but the room has kind of rules and mystery. And the thing that I really like about it the most is trying, as you're watching, to kind of uncover the mystery with the characters. I find that so compelling to watch. Each of the rooms, some of them are trapped, some of them aren't, and they're just trying to escape. It's an escape room horror, right? And trying to work out what the cube is, how to escape from it, and whatever. The acting is terrible, but it was one of my first ever horror movies that I watched, and it was not one of the first, but it was certainly early on in my horror experience. It was the first ever, I think, sci-fi high concept horror I really engaged with, and it kind of opened up a whole new genre of stuff to me. I've got real nostalgia vibes for it. Cube 2 Hypercube is just terrible. But it does something really interesting though. It does a really good sequel thing with a lot of callbacks, a lot of the first person to wake up in the room rushes to one of the doors and says, "Where are the numbers?" which was a big clue in the last thing, and you find out, oh, it's all totally different. But it's just nonsense. And I can't remember much about Cube Zero, the third one, but I remember it being a lot of
I've not seen any
a lot of good
sequels.
killings, but I think it kind of missed the kind of heart that the first one had. So for me, Cube One is the one I kind of go back to most, and yeah, I really enjoy it. It's good.
Those kind of high concept,
Yeah,
wake up in a world with rules horrors are really interesting because they kind of seem trashy, but they're really. Some of them can be quite clever. Have you seen The Platform? It's quite a new one.
Yeah, I have seen The Platform. I'll be bringing that one up later as well. And you're right, D. Lacey, it is a precursor to a lot of the escape room things, which I think, I don't know if there's one before the Cube that I can point to, but it's definitely the first one I encountered that was an escape room movie.
Yeah, I didn't realize you'd be talking about Platform later. My apologies for that. But I watched that recently, and it kind of made me think of Cube because I was like, it's been a while since I've seen one of these. Right, the movie puts you directly into the middle of a strange situation, and it has all these rules, and you learn them as the film goes on. But yeah, I'll let you talk about that one and the very obvious
Parallels there,
parallels and the social issues that it's talking about as
yeah.
well. Brilliant, yeah, good choice, really good choice, and I didn't
I didn't know
expect
you'd
that one
watched it.
either.
That's really cool. Yeah. Have you seen
Yeah,
any of the sequels or just number one?
no, none of the
I wouldn't
sequels.
recommend two. That's all I'll say.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Anyone other than Dan seen it in the chat, just out of interest? I'm not looking at the chat, so
Banana says they haven't heard of Cube. They've heard of Cube but haven't seen it. Yeah, it's definitely worth a look. See, if you're in the mood for like that sort of retro feel, bad acting, but some kind of, I guess you could say there's some creative kills in there, which is nice. The start's really good. Funny thing is, the kind of CGI in the first one is better than the CGI in the second one by like worlds better. Monkey hasn't seen it.
Brilliant. So, my number 7 is a sequel of sorts, I guess you can call it. It's Return of the Living Dead. Yeah, it's just such a good. It's my only zombie film on the list. And Return of the Living Dead is directed by Dan O'Bannon, the chap I was mentioning earlier who wrote Alien. It was his directorial debut, and it's so perfect.
It's really good. Really good.
It's amazing. It blew me away, and it is the most fun film on my list as well, by a country mile. I mentioned Evil Dead earlier. It's a blend of horror and comedy. Return of the Living Dead is... oh, it's so good. So, if you haven't seen it, when I say it's a sequel of sorts, it's set in a world where the events of the Night of the Living Dead were real events. But apart from that, it's not a sequel.
Yeah.
Does that make... It's not a sequel in tone, it's not a sequel in execution, it's barely even a sequel in content. But they used the term living... They had to make it a sequel in order to use the term Living Dead, and they wanted to do that to reach a wider audience. But apart from that, you can basically ignore that. You don't need to see Night of the Living Dead to see this. It's set in this really exaggerated 80s kind of world. The cast is like all loud and brash and colourful punk rock characters mixed with these really loud and brash and unusual working class kind of almost hillbilly kind of American-y characters. So basically zombies come and weird stuff happens, but it's got some of my favourite dialogue in any horror movie. It's got some of my favourite... I don't know if this is on your list or not, but I don't want to say about how well it uses exposition, because I know that's something you spoke to me about.
I was just about to bring that up about it, yeah. It's a masterclass in exposition, isn't it? Like, for sure.
It's so clever, and it has some of my favourite characters. I'm going to speak about Trash in particular. She is honestly one of my all-time favourite characters in anything. Yeah. Books, TV, film, not just horror. She has some of the most memorable lines, some of the wackiest behaviour, and she's the perfect candidate to be eaten alive. Brilliant film.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Like, it's so tongue in cheek, right? It's not a movie you're gonna watch if you want to see a sensible, down to earth, grounded horror. It's just crazy nonsense. Like, you've got really weird, wacky stuff happening in it, and you got sort of unbelievable situations. But the whole time, all the way through, you just feel like everyone is having a lot of fun, right?
But it kind of follows its own rules, and it's very tightly made. Like, it's very good at bringing you on the journey as the audience. It's very good at explaining things to you without explaining things to you. You know what I mean?
The whole time watching it, I wish more modern movies would go back to some of the movies like this and just learn that you can do exposition instantly by just doing it and just getting it out of the way without plodding through all the exposition. And oh my god, I don't want to hear, "Hi brother, how are you today? Oh, how's karate class going? Did you..." I just don't, it doesn't matter. Just skip past it. Come on, just say, I mean, at some point I just want to have them literally just wear a name tag saying, her brother, and then done. It's over, right? You don't need to dwell on all this exposition. You don't need to dwell on the fact that they have a troubled relationship. Just fucking say it. Like, it doesn't matter, and then we can move on with the movie.
Show us. Don't tell us.
Yeah.
Show us.
Yeah, exactly.
And Return of the Living Dead does that so well. So it's a really wacky kind of B-movie horror, but with
sorry, Norm. We'll post to Discord when we're done for sure. Dear Lacey, thanks for joining us.
Cheers, Dan. It has all the sort of wackiness of a B-movie horror, but all the expertly crafted sort of, I don't know what word I'm looking for. It's just all the expertly crafted pacing of filmmakers who clearly know what they want to do and are clearly in love with the genre that they're filming as well. It's kind of a love letter to zombie films, and brilliant.
It's the only ever zombie film I've even semi-enjoyed. I think on the whole, the concept of zombies works better for a series. I think if The Walking Dead hadn't dropped the ball with it, they had something really, smart there, and I'm looking forward to when the next zombie series comes about, now that it's finally over. But you could tell from the first season of The Walking Dead, if they'd kept that kind of intrigue and character development and changing I don't know what you'd call it, changing dynamics, but they didn't. They just went wacky and weird and silly, and I personally was not a fan of what it ended up being and the terrible writing and decisions. I think also, most importantly, the lack of consequences, right? I think if you're ever playing with zombies, you need consequences, and luckily in the sort of TV industry at the moment, there is a trend towards consequences. People obviously want to see that. You look at Game of Thrones' success and stuff like that. So I think the time is right for a really good new zombie series. And I think the reason it works better as a series for me is that it always feels like they don't know how to end a zombie movie, because a zombie apocalypse doesn't have an end. It's an apocalypse. You're watching a journey unfold that doesn't have a destination. And so the format of a movie feels a bit wrong for that, unless you're going to keep it contained.
And Return of the Living Dead does that.
Return of the Living Dead has an ending in mind for it. And I think to some extent you need to have that sort of tongue-in-cheekness there to you, which is why so many comedy zombie things tend to crop up, because it's easier to have a sensible or an ending that fits the genre, if that makes sense.
Yep. I actually think Shaun of the Dead has one of the best endings to any zombie film.
Yeah, that was a cracking film. Yeah, for sure. Obviously, I would call that probably not a horror, more a comedy, but yeah, it has horror elements for sure. And for some people, it's probably the most horrific thing they see, right?
Absolutely. What's your number 7?
Have people being eaten. Tamsin Great gets a bunch of them do, don't they? Okay. We'll skip over my number 7 because we've already talked about it. That's The Fly. I've got it a bit further up the list than you have. Probably, I don't even know why that would be, but yeah, for sure, that's one of our crossovers.
Okay, so that's 1.
Mark it down. I'll skip on to my number 6 then. So my number 6 is The Wicker Man.
Oh, good
pick indeed. Now, this is a pretty old film now. I'm just going to look up when it came out.
I'm going to say late 70s.
Let's all get... no, early 70s. 1973. So, yeah, pretty old school. And it's pretty slow pace through most of it. But, yeah, it's got... I mean, I'm sure it's okay to spoil this one now.
It's nearly 50 years old. If people haven't seen
I haven't seen the new version, the 2006 version. Is it any good? Have you seen it? But the old... Did you seen it, Norm?
No. Did you ask me or Banana?
Banana in chat.
Okay.
Not the Nick Cage one. No, not the Nick Cage one. Oh wait, sorry, my mistake. There's a series as well. God, there's a lot of Wicker Man stuff on IMDb. Now I'm talking about the 1973 version. Yeah, who's the protagonist in that?
It's also a very British film,
Yeah,
isn't it?
so throughout the whole film, you've got this kind of you're following this uh, sort of conservative Christian chap, no nonsense fellow, who's going into this pagan community to solve a murder or something. I can't remember.
He's a Bobby, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a Bobby, and yeah, so he gets kind of wrapped up in the sort of this village and all their sort of weird traditions and starts uncovering different things about it, trying to work out what went on here. And eventually he kind of gets absorbed into this world and is constantly fighting with his own sort of conservative repression and repressed stuff, his own demons. And he does manage to resist a lot of the temptations in the movie. But ultimately, at the end, he ends up, and spoiler alert, he ends up becoming a human sacrifice. And the real beautiful moment of this movie is just the ending, because the camera pans out from the Wicker Man statue, which is just essentially a bunch of cages made of wicker with different animals and our hero tied in, being burnt alive. And the camera just pans slowly away from this while the rest of the village chant on, and because they're sacrificing them for a bountiful harvest next year. But to them, it's joyous and natural, and it makes sense. It's not an evil act. And to some extent, you kind of, or at least I kind of, sympathised with them over him for a lot of the movie, because his ideology is so restrictive and stunted, and theirs seems so kind of joyous and freeing. But then having this kind of horrific moment, and the whole time you're expecting somebody's going to rescue him. It's going to end. He's going to get free, isn't he? And it didn't happen. And that's the first time I ever saw in my life the protagonist not succeed or not survive. And it kind of it shook me up a little bit. It was really really affecting and really powerful. Sorry, chat. I've been glossing over what you've been saying on my little monologue there. The old one is way to go, apparently. Yeah, definitely it's the way to go. I haven't seen the new one, but I can't imagine how a remake could improve it. Like, I think it needs that older feel to it. Monkey, it is it's a good film.
I know how much you like this film, and I had a feeling this might be your number one.
Oh, the radio. It's not my number one, no. The thing is, it's only really the ending I like about it. When I was coming up with my list, I was thinking, what movie do I like most and which ones would I enjoy rewatching? I'd be interested to rewatch it, but I think it's a one-watch thing, really,
Yeah.
Maybe I'm being a bit harsh on it, but yeah, I've seen a lot of really good movies since. So, the Radiohead's "Burn the Witch." Do you know about that? Well, you're a bit of a music buff. Apparently, that follows the Wicker Man movie. Radiohead.
Oh, cool.
I don't know much about that.
Excellent. Yeah, good pick. It is a good film. It is a slow burn, though. And that is by no means a bad thing, but be aware of that if you're planning to give it a go.
Yeah,
I think.
Definitely not a mod movie. I think it's the sort of film that everyone should watch it. Everyone should see it, because it's very informative of something that I think still is only just kind of returning to movies, and that is giving the potential for a bad end, based on the situation, the decisions that were made. Yeah, I don't know. It's good. It's really good. Scary parallels to the real life in the old days when people used to burn suspected witches. I don't know about that, Monkey, because I think it's interesting the choice that they made to set it in what was a more modern setting back then, and not a sort of witch hunty thing, and set it in a sort of obscure community with obscure ways and sacrifices. I guess it kind of, in some ways, has more bearing on films like Midsommar and things like that.
Yeah. I see the
Yeah,
parallels there.
but yeah, definitely check it out, Banana. It's sorry if I've spoiled the ending, but I think you can still enjoy it with that knowledge. I think I went in knowing that, but even still,
Yeah,
I
so
was like, but it won't. But right, it won't.
real. No, good
Yeah.
pick. Definitely.
Yeah, you're right, Monkey. It seemed right to the people doing it at the time. Like they had justification behind why they were doing it. I think the difference is that the witch burnings, nobody enjoyed doing them, whereas in this, it seems like the people think it's a joyous situation. I don't know.
Yeah, witch hunting is like a necessary
Hmm.
evil, whereas this is like
It's part of life.
it's not
It's
evil.
a celebration. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know why
yeah,
that makes it different to me.
yeah. I get the
Go on, Nom. Let's
difference,
hear your
but I also
number six.
understand. I was just going to say I also understand the parallels. So my number six is John Carpenter's masterpiece. No, it's not Halloween. It's The Thing.
That's a goodie. Yeah.
Uh, The Thing is a really good film. It has an amazing setting. It has a fantastic plot that is perfectly executed. It brings up these feelings of paranoia, which are kind of easy to portray in a film, but not easy to transplant that feeling onto the viewer. There's the thing does that well, and then two other films on my list, which are coming up later, also do that really well, and I really appreciate that. The gore is next level. Um, I'm not a big gore head, but a lot of my films are quite gory on this list.
There's a lot of
Um,
overlap for the sort of films you like, isn't there? That they always end up with a lot of gore in. I think that's.
yeah, I don't mean for that to happen, but I can still appreciate it. I think specifically the scene with the German shepherds trying to get out the cage is quite a moving and difficult to watch scene, and everybody who sees it talks about that scene. So yeah, it's brilliant. It also has a scope to appeal to a lot of people, because it's a
Yeah.
sci-fi, but it's not, like that's not important. So if you're a sci-fi fan, you'll get a kick out of that. But if that would normally put you off, you can still watch
It's
this
very
film, you
watchable.
know?
Like I watched it and I haven't rewatched it, so trying to remember it is really difficult for me. But I watched it when I was really young, and I still kind of got on with it and understood it, and felt like compelled to keep watching and engaged. It was very very digestible, wasn't it?
And flamethrowers
They
rock.
certainly did.
But yeah, that's the thing. If you haven't seen the thing, the synopsis is um, it's it takes place in a research outpost in the middle of I want to say the Antarctic or maybe like the
Somewhere
North
cold.
Pole or something. Yeah, somewhere very very cold. And at the beginning, people from a dog from a Swedish research facility runs to their own, this American research facility, and that dog is an alien that has the ability to take the shape of those that it has killed. So it has very kind of Among Us vibes,
Yeah.
It's all about finding the imposter um, before they kill everyone. And yeah, it has some unexpected twists and turns. One thing I really like about it, though, a lot of the character decisions in that film make a lot of sense. A lot of horrors don't do that very well. You go, why are you going in there? Don't do that. And the thing, you go, I get that. Yeah, I would have done the
Yeah,
same.
it follows
You know.
its rules, doesn't it? Which is good.
But yeah, the thing is, yeah, in my opinion, John Carpenter's best film. Amazing music, amazing setting, beautifully filmed, gorgeously executed. It's insanely rewatchable. The Thing, my number
Good
six.
pick. My number five is The Platform, which you mentioned earlier. This is
Yes,
a Spanish film.
I can't remember
I
what.
watched it in Spanish with subs anyway. Could be But yeah, basically, if you're a fan of Cube, you'll be a fan of this. It is really good. The premise is that people wake up. Well, our hero wakes up sat opposite some old guy in a room with a big hole in the middle of the room on the floor and on the ceiling. And it turns out that a big old tray of food comes down from the very top all the way down this through the ceiling, through the floor, and on every floor there is another pair of people. So the people right at the top get a feast, and then the further you go down, it is horrifying for sure. There is going to be less and less food and drink available, to the point where on the lower floors, presumably, no food, right? And I'm not going to give you any information about where the story goes or anything. Obviously, I love the concept. I think it is such a fun play on social commentary. One of the first lines from probably the best actor of the thing, which is the guy who wakes up opposite, is just beautiful. The hypocrisy of it. That he gets the food, he eats the food, and then he spits on the table as it goes down. And our hero turns to him and says, "Why did you do that? You know, why would you do that?" And he says, "Well, the people above probably did the same thing, the assholes." And it's just like,
yeah. Amazing, and a brilliant social commentary, like you said. And it's very in your face, the metaphor. You know,
it's such human
doesn't
nature.
take a genius to work out what that's saying. You know, but yeah, it's that line is great. But the whole film is truly horrifying. And I think one thing that you didn't say, part of the synopsis, is that each week they wake up they're put to sleep, and they're woken up at a different floor at random. So sometimes they wake up higher and sometimes they wake up lower, and their behaviours change when they're on each floor, which is another really interesting thing, I think.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think that they've all volunteered to be in there for a set amount of time, so they know how long they'll be in there roughly.
I think some people it's prison.
But they volunteered to instead commute their sentence to be in this place. That's the kind of nonsense premise of why they're there. But the psychology behind it is they know how long they'll be here, but they don't know what floor they're going to wake up on, and the fear that causes is quite something. Watch it, 100% watch it. It's definitely in my top 5 for sure. To be honest, I'm thinking about it now, and I'm thinking, why isn't this higher on my list? I'd put this higher on my list if I went back and changed my list.
No, I thought it was good, but didn't make my top 10.
Yeah, easily one of my favourites.
Definitely in my top 50 for sure. Which doesn't sound great, but there's a lot of films. You know, that's the problem when you make any top list. People go, "Oh, only number 10," and you're like, fuck it, there's a lot of films.
Yeah. It is horrifying, and you should watch it alone, Banana. It's good. You should watch all horror films alone, in my opinion.
Yeah, why not?
In the dark, with headphones.
My number 5 is a film that I know you don't like. Do you want to take a guess as to a film that I like and I know you don't?
A horror film that I know I don't like. I don't know. There's quite a lot. I'm pretty picky.
My number. Do you want me to give it to you?
Go on then.
My number 5 is The Witch.
Oh, good. Yeah.
The Witch is a great film. A lot of people don't like it, Scruffy included, but The Witch is amazing. This is the only... Let me just double check. Yeah, this is the only film on my list that was made in the 21st century. The Witch is great because it gets under your skin. It moves very much at its own pace, and that's my polite way of saying that it's really slow. For that reason, a lot of people say it's boring, but I personally couldn't disagree more. At its heart, The Witch is a coming-of-age film. It deals with the same thing a lot of horror films deal with, which is in varying degrees, obviously. Um, but that is something men are traditionally really terrified of, which is female sexuality. The theme isn't explicitly explored, but if I can like set a scene for you, The Witch is set in a colonial America, and there's a family of devout Christians who are banished from their own community and told to live in the wilderness alone because they have overly zealous beliefs. Um, in the opening, a baby is taken and dragged into the forest, and the family suspect it's a witch. But that's kind of not the scariest thing about the film. The scariest thing about the film is that the witch's protagonist, this young lady who's coming of age, she's dealt with really I can't say that word. She's dealt with really poorly, and yeah, made to feel really uncomfortable. And you, as the viewer, are made to feel really uncomfortable with how her family deal with her, um, which is bizarre for a film about the occult and about taking babies and using their blood for spells. Um, the the scariest thing being the weird little paranoid cabin fever Christian guilt problems that the family has is, yeah, it's really something. I felt super uncomfortable throughout, and I imagine that's exactly how the protagonist felt. Um, it's a great script, incredible dialogue, really, really believable, genuinely horrifying scenes of both the occult and of really human emotions like grief as well. And something I just want to say now, I love the occult in horror movies. And you're about to see, as we enter my top five, there's going to be a really common theme, but I love the occult in horror films. Yeah, this film's a perfect storm. The Witch is amazing. You're either going to love it or hate it, and I fucking love it.
Yeah, I think the main reason I don't like it might be thematic more than anything else. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of the way the film played out, and I wasn't a big fan of what I took to be the messages of the film personally. But I think for me the worst thing, and it's not the film's fault, it's just preference and taste, was that I don't really like that sort of supernatural horror. Like I said earlier, I don't really like demons. I also don't really like witches. I don't like stuff that has the devil and omnipotence within it.
Oh my goodness!
Because I think
when the devil is in it, that's my sweet spot. When you start to get into like Satan worship, that's like my sweet spot.
Yeah, well, for me, it just puts me off. I prefer horror to be more, I guess, more grounded and tangible and have rules. And if you're going to have the devil, he needs to have specific rituals and rules that you are implicitly aware of for me to be engaged. I found a lot when I was writing my list, I need to understand by the end of the movie the mystery that was being set up for the entire movie. And films like The Witch, and I'm also going to say some others that might end up being on your list or not, but things like Hereditary and just other really popular ones like that, I just always am left feeling kind of put out and betrayed by the fact that the movie didn't respect me enough to reveal its secrets.
Hereditary isn't on my list because I feel like The Witch, I feel like they're the same entry. Yeah. But I loved Hereditary as well because I like that style of film.
I thought it was one of the worst horror movies I've ever watched.
I went home like dancing around, and we saw it really late, so we came out of the cinema and it was like just gone midnight, and I was like skipping down the road like, wasn't that amazing? But yeah, I know it's not, both of those films aren't everyone's cup of tea, and I fully respect your opinion and I agree with everything you said. For all the reasons you don't like it, I would say they're all true. That is correct. But
this is a running theme of us, isn't it, Norm? Yeah, but Banana says, like hard fantasy versus soft fantasy, you want the rules. And that's totally true. I mean, in any media I watch, like whatever it is, I always want to know, what are the rules of the world? And I don't need them to be explained all right from the start. In fact, I prefer films that hold things back and dish them out one piece at a time, you know? That's compelling.
I think the thing I think the thing with The Witch and Hereditary, but I'm not going to speak so much about Hereditary because that's not on the list. But the thing with The Witch is, yes, the supernatural exists, but the takeaway of the film isn't the supernatural stuff. You know, the takeaway of the film was the coming of age. It is the sexualization of young women and female sexuality. I don't know if anyone in the chat has seen it and can vouch for me, but those are my takeaways. And yeah, wow.
Well, I
I
mean,
just love the
this is one of
aesthetic as well. I love going into the forest and seeing, the witch, and I love black
well,
goats
just
and
just to pull you up on the theme there. You say it's about female sexuality. Isn't the message and the takeaway of it then that female sexuality is dangerous and is bad? Because that's what I was kind of left feeling.
no,
Like, what is this film
well,
trying to tell me? That yeah, girls are
well, it
girls
doesn't.
are. I don't want to spoil,
No,
but
no, no. Well, it's kind of a mirror of how afraid society is of female sexuality. You know, it's not saying, oh, because we're portraying it as bad in the film, it's bad in real life. It's portraying it as bad as in the film because that's how people feel about it. That's my takeaway.
okay. Well, but just quickly, like I'm going to throw out a spoiler. So again, close your ears. Blah blah blah. She turns out to be a witch.
Yeah, she kind of goes, fuck it.
But it's not that she
I love
decides
that
at the end of the
ending.
movie. All along, she was a witch. So she
No,
was dangerous. It validates all of the abusive parenting that you saw before because, yeah, he was right. She was a bad egg.
No, I think it was. I didn't take that away at all. I thought it was if you call someone something long enough, that's
Well,
what they'll be.
if they'd ran with that and said, like, that she transformed during the movie, I'd be with you 100%. But that's not what happened.
Because she was kind of put in a position of I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, and the only person she could turn to at the end was what was it? Black
No.
Peter.
What happened was that at the start of the movie, when the baby got abducted, she got co-opted then by a witch. Like right at the start of the movie, before she even reported it to her parents and had a chance to abuse her. So at that point, she had suffered no abuse from her parents and became a witch. The message, I suppose, being some people just have troubled experiences and some girls are just dangerous.
No, I think it's nice. I think it's a cool twist, and that actually makes me appreciate it more now that I understand that. But yeah, you don't know that when you're going through, and it doesn't matter whether their suspicions or whatever are validated. What matters is that how it makes you feel, and if it makes you feel uncomfortable, then it's done its
That's
job.
valid. I mean, Hisky Flower says that they didn't like it, but also found it spooky. So I guess it did its job as a horror, and that's kind of undeniable.
I tell you what, first time watching it, I had the laptop plugged into the TV, and we had downloaded it. I know, isn't that terrible? And it crashed. It crashed right on the scene where they're going into the woods and they find the two young, the son, the youngest boy, finds the not the youngest boy, but the son finds the witch's like house, if you like, and she comes out and she's young and beautiful, and she walks up to him, and right as they're about to embrace, the film crashed and made a horrible noise. It went like,
oh wow, that must have been so good.
I was like, ah.
It reminds me of one time me and my partner watched an episode of American Horror Story, and for the whole, it was like the first episode of the new series. It was the one where they're all like some sort of tribe or something, like a cult. I don't remember. Anyway, it was one of the later series, and for the whole episode we didn't have sound on the thing. Like I didn't have the right codecs. And I thought that was how it was meant to be. Like I was like, this is a really brave choice. The whole way through I was like, God, that's really horrific. And you could just about like hear almost little, like when they screamed you could hear a kind of noise, and that was about all you got. And I was like, this is really good. And then I went back and watched it with Stan. I was like, nah, it's trash now.
Yeah, it's like, oh wait, it's not clever. It's just broken.
Hisky Flower asks, I think with The Witch, did the rabbit ever have any payoff? I feel like it changed to goats halfway through.
I can't remember.
Probably not. It's a rubbish movie.
Can't remember
don't watch
specific.
it.
What are the chat saying apart from Hiskey? Is
No,
anyone else
no one else
mentioning
said
the
anything
witch?
about the witch. Sorry, we had somebody say. Monkey said it does have also had. Sorry, it does have mixed reviews compared to the others on our list. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
fair
I
enough.
guess I'm
That's
just
fair
siding with
enough. But
popular opinion. Yeah.
no, you know what? I thought about it. I was like, I know we're going to have to talk about it because I know Scruffy doesn't like it, and I know it's going to turn into that kind of
I'm sorry,
conversation.
Norm.
But I have to be honest,
Yeah,
fucking loved it. You know.
and
So
I
there
would
you
never
go.
want to take that
I
away
just
from you. I'm glad you got a kick out of it. That's cool.
yeah, I love the aesthetic as well. It's incredible aesthetic, and yeah, I love the occult in horror films, and I love that the goat spoke to her as Satan. Yeah, I want to speak to a goat. That's
Yeah.
Satan.
That's what it is, isn't it? You wanted to be the witch. Let's face it.
Yeah, I want to be the witch.
You were just like, right on, girl. You go.
I was like, kill that baby. Yeah. Right, let's move on before we get
Yeah.
complaints.
Okay. So, my number four. Number four. Getting
Yeah.
to the real cream of the crop now. Although the others have been great too. This was a really hard list to do. Well, actually, it was easier for me than the board game list, and I don't know why that is. But it was. There's a lot of marginal ones that I kind of had to shint out of the list, but I felt okay. My number four is The Endless.
I don't know this
No,
one.
it's another one that not everyone's heard of. I think it's not too obscure though. I'm just going to quickly find out the year 2017, so another quite recent one, and it's quite an indie production, I think. So it's not a big mainstream thing, but the kind of premise for this is that two brothers have been grew up in a kind of cult, and on the death of I think one or both of their parents, they moved away and led normal lives. They get a video through the post from the cult saying, "Hey guys, how you doing? Come on down, we miss you. You know, let's." And all the guys look happy and young in the thing, and it's the brothers are having a pretty miserable time in the real world, right? I mean, you've got to be pretty depressed to consider going back and saying hi to everyone, all your former people, when you've become aware that it was kind of a cult. Like this place we grew up in, now that we're in the real world, we can see it for what it was. And so there's that kind of whole thing. But they do decide to go back eventually. And it gets really, really interesting. I'm not going to spoil too much, but it's not just, oh, they're an evil, murderous cult. Not at all. It has stuff to do with time loops, which
Oh, interesting.
are, God, so up my street. Like, talk
Yeah.
about high concept sci-fi stuff, but oh yeah, it's really, really interesting. The whole meta of the film, the sort of message of the film, is, I guess, a big exploration of the loops we live in, and so having that have a literal sort of manifestation within the movie, and this cult kind of you discover as you go that they're kind of celebrated. They are in a loop that they are happy with, and even if they become aware of it, they love that they're in this loop, And then there are other loops that you see that are a bit less pleasant. There's one that's particularly interesting, and I actually heard watched some videos when I watched this about it. I heard that it's there's two people that were in one of the filmmaker's previous movie. So it's like
Okay.
various different ways their story could have been told, which is, I think,
Yeah.
beautiful. I should also say that talking about it being indie, the two main actors, the two brothers in it, were also, I think, the writers and directors as well. They just kind of went, let's just do it. Let's just be the guys in it, which I think is really cool. And they did an amazing job. Like, the acting in it is top notch. There's some really high concept and mysterious scenes. One specifically with this rope that the guy's pulling that just extends off into darkness, and you don't know what it is, and it just has a lot of communication about our perceptions of ourself and our strengths and our weaknesses, and the habits we have, the habits that inform our self-perception, and the horrific nature of the loops we find ourselves in sometimes. I loved it. Definitely you should check it out.
Real. That's very you. That's very you. When you told me about it, I was like, yeah, I can see why you
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah, The Endless.
For sure.
2017, like I say. It's pretty new. I should probably find out some of the names of people. I'm really bad with names, like really bad.
Great.
It looks like one of the main
Um,
guys, literally, his name is Aaron Moorhead. He played the character Aaron, so even his actual name, which is. I wonder how
wow.
autobiographical the whole thing was. Um, but yeah, if you've got any interest in sort of sci-fi stuff and time, especially, oh god, I love time in movies because movies can play with time in a really interesting way. Cuts and changes of the camera. You can do a lot with time in movies. It's the perfect medium for exploring it.
Yeah. And, you can have non-linear narratives and all kinds of interesting
Mm.
things, which you would struggle to do elsewhere.
Yeah.
Um, when I think about non-linear narratives, it always works well in film because you can, in your mind, very easily splice where, oh, now we're back at this point because of the set design and what people are wearing. There's so many visual cues that doesn't even need to be pointed out
Yeah.
to you, you know?
Uh,
Whereas you couldn't do that with a book or
yeah,
a
and then
board
you
game.
can just make a really interesting thing of it and say, just literally have a character turn to you and say, do you remember how we got here? And you as the audience didn't see them get there, obviously, but you're so used to that sort of convention that you don't watch everything that happens, that you go, yeah, how did they get there? Oh my god, I didn't see them get there. And it just, that's not something that happens in this movie, but it's an example of the sort of thing you can do with time, which I think is really interesting. Yeah, you should definitely check it out, Banana. It's if you've got any interest in that sort of stuff. I mean, I would say in terms of horror, there are some really quite nice moments, but it's not the most horrific thing on our lists that we've talked about today. But it definitely is a horror, and it's a really good one, and it's a really fun one, very watchable.
Cool. Are we number 4?
Yeah, you're number 4.
My number 4 is a film called Deep Red. Deep Red is kind of a catch-all film for a specific genre that I wanted to represent on my list. And that genre is giallo or giallo films. Giallo translates in Italian to yellow. These are Italian films that were very popular in the 70s and less so in the 80s, but definitely some. If you don't know giallo, then it kind of stems from old pulp, fiction novels, like murder mystery type ones. And the reason it's called giallo is because the front cover of these novels were yellow. And that's where the term comes from. But these are they do what they say on the tin. They're kind of murder mysteries. They're kind of whodunit. But they're very over stylized and they're mixed with horror elements. The reason you might be interested to watch these is if you're a fan of any modern slasher film, you will be able to see the influence of giallo when you go back and watch it. It has a lot of the same elements, the single killer, the many deaths. There are so many good ones. This particular one, Deep Red, is directed by Dario Argento, who is the master of giallo, and he has another film on my list a little bit higher up. But some other directors to check out would be people like Mario Bava. You can watch things like Black Sabbath, masterpiece, and a band you might have heard of. Got their name from there. There's. I think Italians make the best horror films. Deep Red is the quintessential giallo film. And if you're at all interested in knowing your history of horror, you can't afford to miss this genre. Go check out Deep Red. Fantastic film.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about it. Like when I was looking around, it appeared in a lot of top lists for horror because I had to look at a few lists before while writing my own to make sure I didn't forget anything. But a lot of people rave about it. What other titles would you say fit into that sort of category?
Well, there's one really famous one that I don't want to say because it's
Okay,
on
I
my
thought so.
list.
I was like, because that's the one I've seen. So I can't talk about Deep Red, but I can talk about that one. But I didn't want to say that until. Good, good. Okay, yeah, Deep Red. What's the kind of premise of it? Also, Banana asks,
Um,
is it super gory?
is it super gory? There's some really nice gore, but no, it's not super gory at all. There's blood, there's decent kills. Um, it depends, you know. I really like kind of heavily stylized
Mm.
filmmaking. If you don't like that, then you won't like this genre. But if you can get on board with like trippy, edgy cuts and Deep Red does a lot of cool stuff with reflections and memories and yeah, it's a weird blunt instrument that bashes you around the head with its noise and music and visuals and yeah, I love it. It's a feast. It's a real
It's nice to get
feast.
yourself out of the comfort zone sometimes, isn't it? I'm gonna make a lot of enemies now and just say that for me, films like Parasite are an example of the worst sort of thing with filmmaking because I think it's a pretty terrible movie. And I think one of the things that makes it so bad for me is that it is so comfortable and easy to watch. It placates the audience so much with just this cinematography and style that is so familiar and so typical, and it rubs me totally the wrong way. And the plot I found really, really, really boring. Personally, I didn't like it, at all. Some of the characters were all right, but yeah, the main thing that got me was that it was a foreign film that had felt like to me it had just kind of kowtowed to a Western Hollywood aesthetic, and that is why it's so popular and why it's winning so many awards, right? In my opinion. So I couldn't kind of shake that feeling when I was watching the whole thing. Whereas stuff like what you're bringing up here, Norm, it is so nice to kind of take that leap into something different that feels janky and weird. And we'll talk about it in a minute with your other choice. That it's something so unusual to you if you've only consumed, regular films that are popular and
Yeah, the Italians aren't afraid, especially with the giallo genre, aren't afraid to experiment with color
mm,
either, and that will appear very unusual if you haven't watched them before. Um, but for me, there's something so captivating from the moment I saw Deep Red was the first giallo film I saw. That's probably why I rate it so highly. But yeah, the second I saw it, I was like, this is weird. It's like I'm watching a slasher movie, but I've never seen anything like this before. And that's probably the best I can say about it.
that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, another bugbear I have is a lot of films try and film everything just in darkness and you can't see what's going on because that makes it more spooky. The film I saw, I don't know if it's the same in Deep Red. And this also applies to stuff like Return of the Living Dead. You can see everything that's happening even though it's nighttime. Yay! And I should actually throw out another mention for the first one I mentioned way back, Ready or Not, which uses ambient lighting in the best way I have ever seen in a movie. I have never seen a movie that has open flames like candles that aren't distracting. I've never seen one that has really low dim lighting, but everything is in clear and focused and not at all confusing. Like, lighting is an art, and most movies just completely fail with it. I mean, you got
Yeah.
it's not just movies, like series like Game of Thrones with their big old fight scenes just in total darkness. What are you doing? Yeah.
It was
A little bit
pretty
of a
terrible.
bugbear, but that's something that these movies do really well. They bring in colour instead of darkness.
And and the music is very different to what you used to. The soundtrack to this is done by like a prog rock
Mm.
band, and sometimes you'd be listening to you'd be watching a scene, and the sounds are almost
Yeah.
overbearing, and I love it.
Cool. Where are we up to now? Number three. Top three,
Yeah.
baby. Okay, top three for me. Number three, we have The Green Room. Green
Oh,
Room.
what a film!
This is a recent watch for me, fairly recent, and I just enjoyed myself from start to finish. Has Patrick Stewart appearing in it? Although he's pretty terrible in it. Let's be fair. I love the guy, but oh my god, in that, not his best role. But the main reason it made it this high up my list is one specific scene. So I'll just outlay how the movie works. Basically, you've got this kind of punk band, right? Like full
Yep,
on punk band, and they're performing a venue, and stuff goes a bit wrong. Like they're a witness to a murder, I think, and they're in the green room,
yep,
and they end up being detained there because, as it transpires, the place is owned by some less than savoury characters. I think that's fair to say, and they don't
yep.
want
Neo
and they don't want them
Nazis.
to go to the police or whatever. They decide they want to deal with the problem, right? Of these witnesses, which are our heroes, and so the whole film is them trying to kind of escape from this situation. And there's one scene in particular where the violence really starts, and ramps up a gear, and that is I'm not gonna. I don't want to spoil it or say anything about it because it comes kind of almost out of nowhere. It's kind of like a bit of a struggle that you're kind of not expecting much consequence to come from. So it is very jarring when then there is suddenly this horror, this body horror that happens, and yeah, and everything just goes terrible for the characters from there on. But there's this kind of returning safety to the green room that feels like home, like when your kids playing tag. It's a really good film, and very violent and very punchy and very hold no prisoners. It
Feels
felt
really
like
like visceral,
say
doesn't
again.
it? Feels really
Yeah,
visceral,
it felt like punk
to
made film,
watch.
and punk in a film. It was like the consequences were real and visceral. Constantly, if a character made the wrong decision, they were punished and brutally. And
But characters had the agency to make those
yeah,
decisions as
yeah,
well.
that's the thing that they had completely the whole way through. You were watching the characters making the choices, and that those choices had consequences. And yeah, it's got a great ending, and a really nice exchange at the end. And oh my god, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. It's really very cool.
Green Room is, yeah, it's like punk in a film. It hits you in the chest and it keeps your attention, and then you leave it feeling like I don't know what just happened,
I
but I
can't
loved it.
imagine how you could be bored at any point watching that film. Like the whole way through, you kind of like. I mean, I
Yeah,
guess
it's spiky,
yeah,
isn't it? It's a spiky
yeah,
film.
it is spiky, and the characters have soul and life and personality, and it's good. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, couldn't agree more.
and it's violent.
Um, anyone on the chat seen Green Room?
Not that I can see at the moment.
Cool. My number three is one that you guys have probably seen. It is Silence of the Lambs. I mean, this is an iconic film,
Yeah,
right? I don't want to spend too much time on it because it is an iconic film and everyone has seen it. But it achieves so much and it appears to be completely effortlessly. Like, you genuinely care if the killer
so
is
Banana
caught.
hasn't seen uh, Silence of the Lambs, and
Green.
Monkey. It was a neo-Nazi Patrick Stewart, not a punk Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, Banana, you've not
No,
seen
he
Silence of the
says
Lambs.
he's new
Okay,
to
well,
horror, but he used to hate it. So.
oh, well, interesting. Well, welcome to the
Yeah,
genre. Silence of the Lambs is actually quite an accessible one, especially if you're really new. One, because it's everywhere, and two, because it it kind of weaves the tale. You know, it follows who's it? It's Jodie Foster, I think. Jodie Foster works for the FBI, and she's sent to Anthony Hopkins, who is a
one of the
cannibal,
best actors
who
in the
is in.
universe ever that was ever born ever.
Yeah, so she's sent to him, who is in maximum security prison, to get some information on a current serial killer who is capturing women and peeling off their skin. So that is genuinely horrible, but you don't see a lot of it. A lot of the film is the tale. It's the genuine intrigue of, are they going to catch the killer? And it's kind of unusual in horror that the protagonist, Jodie Foster, doesn't encounter the killer until right at the very, very end. So she's never actually in danger during the film, but it's still scary. And that's very smart. It's a very smart film. It's very well made. It fully deserves all the Oscars it won. There's content in the film that is haunting. And yeah, everyone I watch it with, even people who don't like horror, they all squeal at the right part. They're all shocked at the right parts. They get it, you know? It speaks with a language that is really familiar to anyone. It tells the story really, really well, and you don't have to be a horror buff to appreciate how good it is. So, Silence of the Lambs is my number
That
3.
being said, I didn't really get on with it. I love Anthony Hopkins. I think the acting in it's really good. I found it a bit boring, to be honest. And I think part of the problem for me was I watched Hannibal first.
The sequels are junk.
To me, I enjoyed it because it was all new. And I found the characters compelling and interesting in that one because I hadn't seen them before.
It's a different actress in Hannibal.
It's not Jodie Foster, but it is Anthony Hopkins still. And so seeing him in a more restrained role in the...
Oh, yeah, this is it. So Anthony Hopkins is only on screen for 16 minutes in this film, whereas in Hannibal, he's the lead character.
Yeah.
So it's a massive difference.
That's why I think I was a bit disappointed, and why I preferred Hannibal. And I kind of lump Silence of the Lambs in my mind with films like Seven, which I hate.
Yeah, that's fair. Because I think there's a difference. I think there is a difference.
I don't watch horror movies. I don't watch any movies or any films to watch the police investigating the killer. I don't care. Dexter, rubbish. I don't want to know what the police are doing. I want to know what the killer's doing.
I genuinely, I normally feel the same, but I think that's why I say it achieves so much so effortlessly. I don't even think about that. It doesn't even bother me. But yeah, it's a classic.
I'm aware I have a very unique relationship with that, having watched Hannibal first and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Has Monkey seen it, just out of interest?
Monkey says there's a reason it's so iconic, so I'm assuming Monkey's seen it.
Yep. Thanks, Monkey. I feel validated.
I think you two have pretty similar taste in things. Although he hasn't watched any of the stuff you're talking about, the more obscure stuff. So,
what's your number 2?
My number 2 is cheating a bit here, but it meant I could put an extra movie on the list. So, and they are completely different films. Creep 1 and 2.
Oh, this nearly made my list.
Not? In some ways, I kind of want this to be number 1. And if I was asking myself what's the most horrific movie I've seen, these would be number 1, or number 1 of it would be number 1. But in terms of enjoyability, there's one that just goes up. But oh my god, Creep is incredible. It's a movie about... what's he doing? He's like documenting this guy, right? Like there's an ad in a paper or something that says, "Come film me." You know.
Okay. Do you think you could show the chat what movie you mean? Because there's a couple of films called Creep.
Oh, okay, sure. I'll get it up on IMDb. While I do that,
to answer your question, the synopsis is a vlogger basically is given. It responds to an advert, and the advert is film me for a day, for 24 hours, you'll get £1,000 cash. And they kind of know it's a bit dodgy, so they film their journey, and they meet this chap. He's kind of weird, and he's a bit of a creep, and that's basically the film.
Yeah, so this is the guy. He is an incredible actor. The whole way through, you're wondering, like, is he a bad guy? Is this all just in the character's head? It's the 2014 version, and like I say, there's a sequel What's this
which
one
is
here?
really
The
good.
Creep. Well, I don't know what this is. So it's not this. It's this. 2040 version, and there is a Creep 2, which for some reason isn't appearing on IMDb. This,
Some part of me prefers the second.
yeah, I totally get that. Creep 2 is the best sequel I've ever seen. There's Creep 2 there. And that's 2017, so 3 years apart. And it does a sequel in a way I've not seen any other movie do a sequel before. Which is that it changes things up from the first movie. I'm not going to give you any spoilers about the first movie at all. You have to just watch it.
No.
It's tense all the way through, and it has the best ending I've ever seen in a movie ever. Creep 2, then, there is no way it can recapture Creep 1, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought, all the intrigue is gone. That would be a terrible sequel. And then about 10 minutes in, I was like, this is so clever.
What it does instead is it just goes a completely different way, and you end up with this just wonderfully different movie that's bizarre and fun.
Different but the same. The same in feeling, but different in content.
Like,
you know what?
The tonal shift is huge, but it still provokes the same feeling with a completely different, I don't know what you'd say, content and aesthetic and vibe. Like, the energy in it is different, the pacing in it is different, everything is completely different, but the feeling you get and are left with as the viewer is the same. And I watched it with my partner, both of them. They said that the second one felt worse for them. I personally found the first one more affecting. They found the second one more affecting. I guess that's a judgment call, but oh my god, yeah, really good.
Good pick.
100%.
I don't think many people would have seen it either.
Yeah, if you haven't, I mean, it's on Netflix. It's like so accessible, and I don't know why it's not talked about more. Like I say, it's the most horrific movie I've seen. I would like it's like my number one is my other movie dash Creep 1, like, and then my second movie would be Creep 2. That's my top 10.
Cool. No, good pick. My number 2 is an oldie, and it is Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, nice. Just want to quickly circle back. Hisky Flower says that the first one, they couldn't sleep. Second one, just felt panic while seeing it. They scared me completely differently, but totally, yeah, like totally scared by the whole thing. And I get it. That's totally bad. Yeah, that's how I felt.
Yeah, agree.
Sorry.
Before I talk about Rosemary's Baby, I think it's really important to say that Roman Polanski is an abhorrent and disgraceful human being, and me including Rosemary's Baby is not in any way an attempt to condone the crimes that he's committed, and I hope France expedites him and he gets to pay for his crimes. But with all that said, Rosemary's Baby is a near perfect film. It does that thing really well that I mentioned earlier of transposing the feeling of paranoia onto the viewer via the protagonist, you know? I'm not just watching it going, oh, look at Rosemary, she's so paranoid. I'm looking at her going, I'm watching it going, who is it? Who can help? Who can help us? You know, it's that genuine feeling of panic and that everything is against you. The loneliness, the weird fever dreams that are in the film are brilliant. The synopsis, if you haven't seen it, is this young couple. One is an actor, and one is, from what I can gather, a stay-at-home housewife. They move into a New York apartment, and they have really weird neighbors. The husband likes to hang out with the really weird neighbors, and his acting career starts going really, really well at a time where Rosemary becomes pregnant. Rosemary thinks she's kind of paranoid that her neighbors are witches, and then that paranoia leads into everyone I'm dealing with, my doctor, everyone who's involved with this pregnancy is a witch. I can't trust anyone. Whether that is true or not, I'll leave that down to you to watch, because it really is a brilliant film, and it has a perfect ending. Hell, Satan. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I haven't
Have
seen
you
that
seen this one,
so
Scruffy?
that's one that I'll have to put on my to watch list.
Definitely. I've kind of felt a little bit bad doing it because I don't know if you know, but Roman Polanski is he is still wanted by the U.S. government for crimes including rape, but he fled and he's been sheltered by France for his whole life. So that made me feel a little bit unusual about putting it on the list, but
Yeah, it's really funny
it
with that,
is.
like admiring people's work, even if they're bad people. And I think it's totally something you can do. Like, yeah, to a much lesser well, no, not yeah. Anyway, not going to get into that. But there's a lot of authors and a lot of creators that have made really wonderful things and done really terrible things. And
I think
I think it's possible, and I think it's valid to disconnect the creator from the work. And
I think the reason it's easy with film as well is because it's a huge. It's not just one person's work.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
that's fair.
when I'm watching it, watching the actors, I'm watching the set designers, I'm watching the costume designers, I'm watching the screenplay writers, I'm watching the lighting, I'm watching the sound, I'm watching the people in post, the people in pre. I'm not just watching. It's very different. Like I feel different about like music, for example. If Roman Polanski was a musician, a singer, I feel very weird listening to that because it's him directly singing to me.
That's interesting with
But
music, because I think
because
I'd feel similarly with music. But things like books, like, I mean, thinking about people like J.K. Rowling with all her horrible transphobic comments and stuff, and, it makes you kind of almost have a weird disconnect. Like, how could that person have written this wonderful book that
yeah,
inspired me for such a long time in my life and made me really understand in a really basic way things about birthright and how ludicrous it is
yeah,
to label people by how they were born, and then just the fact that that message is so disconnected from her as a person. I don't know.
and yeah, so yeah, I'm able to make that disconnect because I see Rosemary's Baby more as what's on the screen rather than what's behind it. If I didn't know it was directed by him, I would have no knowledge. There's no connect there.
Banana
Um,
brings up
but
H.P. Lovecraft as well. I think that, yeah, I mean, I think it's about adopting any work into something personal and kind of taking ownership of it, and what it
yeah,
means to you. Your interpretation of it is something you're creating, and that's removed from the author's intentions. Death of the author, isn't it? They've been dead for a long time.
the the only thing, yeah, actually no, don't worry about that part. I was about to say, but yeah, it's I felt like I needed to say that because I didn't want to say you should watch Rosemary's Baby without saying that Roman Polanski's a
I'm
piece
sure
of shit.
there's plenty of people involved in the production of the things I've mentioned as well that have been horrible people, so sorry if I've been ignorant of that. Okay,
Yeah,
it's time.
number one.
Number one. How many? We've only had one crossover so far, haven't we?
I don't think we're gonna cross
No, I
over
think
for
we're
number
only going
one.
to have one crossover because my number one is Banana guessed it right at the start. Cabin in the Woods.
Ah,
It's my favorite horror movie, 100%.
it's very
Yeah,
good.
when he threw out the comment, I was like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about that yet." I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's for anyone who doesn't know what Cabin in the Woods is. It is almost a meta commentary on horror, where you follow a group of kids going to a cabin, and they uncover their own horror, because you take a step away from the kids then and see this kind of team of people manufacturing the horror in order to appease a deity. So they are setting up the scene, and based on the actions of the people who are being monitored by them, the kids have gone to the cabin. They are catering a horror with the intention of killing them all, but also killing them all at just the right time. And and I love every single thing about it. It moves to places that horror movies have never done before, in my experience, in terms of commentary of the genre. And I love anything that tries to tackle that kind of meta element. I really enjoy a lot of the comedy films. Like I had a blast with things like Final Girls, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other films that kind of take it to another. I mean, you even mentioned Shaun of the Dead does it to some extent, you know. Things like even Rocky Horror, The Little Shop of Horrors, all these ones that go to more of a comedy bent. The Cabin in the Woods does and has that comedy element, but still, I think, remains in the realm of being in itself also a horror movie. And it does this meta thing and treats everything in kind of a fun comedy where it has a few funny kills, but it also, the main story, the main plot, still is a narratively a horror. So it's wheels within wheels in terms of meta narrative, and is beautiful. It's very well done.
It has that thing that all good Josh Whedon stuff has, which is you can tell he just loves horror. Yeah. It's like a love letter, you know?
Yeah, you're right, Banana. It is amazing.
Yeah, it is. That's probably in my top 20 for sure. Missed out on the list. It's not my number one, but yeah, what a film. What a film. It's so much fun, and it is still scary. You're right. There are parts that are still scary, and the ending is phenomenal.
Yeah. They couldn't have done a better ending. I mean, yeah. If you've seen it, you'll know why I liked it based on what I said earlier. Yeah.
If you study the film, you're studying the genre.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think as a thing for improving people's understanding of horror and slashers specifically, and being able to communicate in the discourse, all you need to do, you can be completely new to the whole thing. If you watch Cabin in the Woods, you'll be up to speed. Like, it sums up the last, well, however long slashers have been around in a movie. It's like an essay.
It is. But that makes it sound boring, you know. But it's not.
What are you saying? Essays aren't boring. I love reading.
No, that's a great pick. I didn't know that was going to be your number one, though. It made sense because you mentioned it was going to be in your list later, but I completely forgot about that. Okay. My number one, you know what it is, right?
Yeah.
Scruffy?
Yeah, sorry, I'm nodding. I forgot you can't see me.
Yeah, sorry. My number one is Suspiria. Yeah. I love Suspiria. Could you bring it up?
Incidentally, this is the old version.
Original.
Not the new one, not the remake. Which I really liked, the new one. So there's
I wouldn't know.
2018 version, which is really good, and you should watch, Norm. Wait, didn't you watch it? I thought you watched that.
I turned it off. I should give it another chance. I was in a really bad frame of mind.
On the wrong thing. Sorry, guys. I will get some stuff up for it.
While Scruffy's doing that, Suspiria is another film by Dario Argento, the director of Deep Red.
1977.
And this is... I don't even know where to begin. There's so much I love about this film. I'm really struggling. I'll start with the synopsis because the plot is the least important thing in this film. And that sounds like a weird thing to say, but the plot is completely secondary. It's about a lady who's joining a German ballet school, and weird things happen in the ballet school, and it turns out that it's a coven of witches. But that isn't important. And that's weird, right? To say the plot's not important, but what is important is just how this film makes you feel all the way through. I said earlier how the Italians and giallo directors have a great understanding of colour.
I'm glad you said that there, and I've just got the thing up now, and I'm looking at the colours in it. Like, you know, you get these bright reds, and there's some deep blues.
It's all vibrant primary colours, you know? And
oh god, I'm getting all the ads.
It's kind of over the top, you know, but it's so good. Suspiria, when you're watching it, feels like you're dreaming or having a nightmare, I should say. And it's not just the colours, and it's not just the way it's filmed that make you feel like that. It is also all kinds of little weird choices that they made when filming. I'll give you an example. The cast were all different nationalities, and they were instructed just to do their lines in their own national tongue. And then it was all dubbed over in English. So you have this really weird, that's jarring to watch. And then you walk into like bright blue rooms and then deep dark red rooms, and you think, what is happening? What is this thing? Why does it make me feel so uncomfortable? Another weird choice is they blasted the score music, which is, by the way, the soundtrack is my favorite ever soundtrack in horror. It's made by a prog rock band called Goblin, and the opening music, which repeats itself several intervals during the film, is my favorite piece of music in any film. That was like blasted when the actors were playing, were acting. And what's weird about that is, as part of the music, there's like whispers, and sometimes the actors react to it, and sometimes they don't, and it really blurs the line between what is source and what is score. And it doesn't break the fourth wall; it just kind of chips it a little bit and makes you think, what is going on? What's happening?
It adds that
What is
dreamlike thing,
this?
doesn't it? And plays with non-diegetic and diegetic sound.
Yeah, and the whole thing. The reason I love it, I said right at the beginning, one of my top films makes me feel like I have the same feelings I had when I was a kid. When I was a child, I didn't think about the social issues that horror films are dealing with. I didn't think about the personal issues that they're trying to make you think about. I just felt this odd. I sort of understood what was happening on the screen, and it made me feel an odd way. And Suspiria gives me that same feeling. Suspiria takes me back to a child and makes me think, I kind of understand what's happening. I don't really understand why it's important, and it's making me feel really uncomfortable. It has some really, really iconic deaths that you'll probably have seen referenced other places. It's a really famous film, and it's been my number one for forever and a day. Suspiria is amazing, and if you haven't seen it, yeah, you should
Yeah,
watch
I
it.
mean, I totally think that makes a lot of sense what you just said there. Like there was some moments in it where, for example, and you just going back to the color, the character's running away in one point, and it's all red and dramatic, and the music's blaring, and then they get to an attic, and just immediately everything shuts off and it's blue. And just everything's blue now. And I don't know why, but that sort of really simple thing just gives you this. You're there, you're feeling it. Like every part of your senses is saying the same thing to your brain, and it's really clever. The use of sound, like you say, and the thing of voices and what is and isn't real is. It's something that more movies should do. Just going to what you guys were saying about the different versions. So this is the 1977 version. This is it, all with the funky, weird doors and stuff. And this is the newer version, which actually takes place. It focuses more on the dance side of the dance school. Which
The new version, I haven't seen all of it, so I can't comment. But I know that it's quite well received, the new version. But for
Monkey
me,
didn't like it.
when the part that I did watch made me feel like they missed what's great about Suspiria. They tried to expand on the plot, and there isn't a plot. It's not important. What's important is the feeling, and you're only going to achieve that if you watch the original in a dark room and just allow it to engulf you and
Well,
suffocate
that's a
you.
really interesting question. Monkey just asks, do you ever think it will be dethroned as your number one? Then?
Uh, Hopefully, if I watch a film better than Suspiria, then I'd love that.
Yeah, I mean, we're all seeking new stuff, aren't we? I think the great thing about horror, especially for me, sort of fairly recently, is kind of rediscovering it. And actually, if I look at my top 10 list, a lot of them are stuff I've watched as an adult, right? Like that thing you were saying about recapturing that sort of childhood sense of whatever that is. It's not dread, it's not fear, it's just, I guess, accessing a part of yourself you don't normally access is something that is very possible if you're open to it. And finding those gems that hit you in the right way and talk to you in the right way. It's an exciting journey, isn't it?
And it's a personal one because you agreed with everything I said about Suspiria. I agreed with everything you said about Cabin in the Woods, but neither is on the other one's list. So it's a very personal
we agree
journey.
about a lot in terms of aesthetic and design and the feeling a thing should evoke, but we have one crossover in our top 10.
Yeah. So I think that just shows you how personal it is. You might watch Suspiria and go, well, I didn't have much of a plot. I don't like that. And that's valid. Yeah. That is perfectly valid. And a lot of people do feel that way. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think in chat? Do you think that sounds interesting from how I described it?
Well, well, people furiously type. I'll yeah. Is there any honourable mentions you wanted to throw out? Because I've got a couple that didn't quite fit my list, and I actually really wanted to revisit Alien just really quickly because I forgot to mention. I knew you were going to bring it up. I just knew. But there's one of my I guess childhood traumas that stopped me from sleeping for several nights, and this is something that doesn't happen a lot with horror movies for me. Was from Alien 3. The scene at the end where the baby alien gets blown out. I'm going to spoil it, I don't care. Gets blown out through a little hole in the ship in an agonizing, horrific way. And the betrayal in its eyes, because it's kind of a human-alien hybrid, eyes. The betrayal, just the empathy. I had so much empathy with that alien. And ever since I saw that, I just couldn't sleep. It just felt like so wrong on so many levels. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. Like, did you have any experiences with Alien 3?
Alien 3? Not so much. You know, I had nightmares from really trashy horror films as a kid because I didn't understand what was great and what was trashy because I was a kid, right? I'll tell you the film that gave me the most nightmares was Freddy versus Jason.
No way.
Yeah, which is trash, right? And you might like that. And that's perfectly valid as well. There's a whole bunch of people who love really trashy horror films. Yeah. And sometimes I count myself in that, you know. Cute. I think a lot of the ones in my top 10 are a little bit more artsy. But there's still, you know, things like Evil Dead and, you know, Return of the Living Dead. I think definitely fit that bill. But, yeah, I mean, oh, gosh. Are there any honourable mentions? A lot of ones that you mentioned would have been my honourable mentions anyway. But, you know, so many classics. Obviously, I love Exorcist. I
stuck my tongue out at you there. You didn't see it.
Because you don't like it, do you?
I think it's one of the worst movies in the world.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, there's just so many. There's so... It's too long. That's why I think doing a top 10 was a good format. I don't know what my honourable mentions would be. I don't even know where I would begin.
Going back to your question, it does make sense apparently, and I don't know what Monkey was saying in response to, but that's probably why you like watching horror films alone. Not sure what that was in response to, but yeah. Thank you, Banana. I'm glad you've enjoyed our little rant about horror movies. It's something I hope you can tell that we both are really passionate about. Like, horror has touched both of us, I think, in a really really interesting way. I think just quickly, I just want to say that my first ever experience with horror was The Omen, which I thought would be right up your street. And I think most of the movie's pretty boring, but the one scene where she's standing up on top of the building, you know, and it's this is all for you, Damien, and then she jumps off and hangs us. Like that was like the first horror I think I've ever seen, except Watership Down. Obviously, we've all been traumatized by Watership Down, right, guys?
I know one that Scruffy hates, and this one's going to get you some hate. The Shining.
Oh, yeah.
You hate that film.
It's just okay. I hate vomit and gross out stuff. Like, it takes me out of it. It's like, that's why I hate The Exorcist. That's why I hate demons. One of my one of the movies that would have made the top list if it didn't have a stupid bit of gross out in it is The Visit, right? Which has dread running through it, and some of the best acting I've ever seen, like the Skype call with their parent. Oh my god, that I showed that scene.
My favourite M. Night Shyamalan film by far is The Visit.
It's great. It's a great film, but they have this weird thing with adult diapers.
Makes me feel a bit sick just thinking about
it. It's like, why put that in? Like, it doesn't scare me. It just makes me go, ugh. And it's cheap. It's like, it's worse than a jump scare for cheap. Like, it's so boring. Like, oh, vomit. Isn't that gross? Aren't you feeling repulsed and horrified? No, I feel a bit like you could be doing anything else right now. Like,
I'll tell you what film, if you want to do honourable mentions, this film deserves an honourable mention, not because it's my number 11 or anything, but because I really enjoyed it recently, and I don't see anyone talking about it, so I want to just mention it now, and that is Spiral. Spiral is an exclusive to Shudder. Shudder is a streaming platform just for horror, so it's horror movies, TV shows, podcasts, documentaries. And Spiral is about a same-sex couple who move into a neighborhood in the mid-90s, and they're paranoid of their neighbors being out to get them. And it has a really, really interesting sort of social message towards the end. But yeah, it's a really well-made film. Spiral is a good film. It came out in 2019, and no one's talking about it, and I guess it's because it's exclusive to a niche streaming service. But yeah, deserves that and Ready or Not were like the two best films of 2019, and everyone knows Ready or Not, and no one knows Spiral. So that's my honourable mention.
So
Spiral.
Bananas just said they don't remember their first horror movie, The Forgotten.
I don't know. What's that about?
I've just looked at it on IMDb. It looks like. It's not particularly well received, but I don't know. Could be good. Could be good. I don't know anything about that one. I've not seen that, I'm afraid. And have you ever seen Doctor Sleep?
Doctor Sleep is the sequel to The Shining. No, I haven't seen it, but I've read the book.
Okay, I know nothing about it. But yeah, it's last year, so no wonder that one hasn't popped up on my thing. Which Shining version do you like best? Which Shining do you like best? Night Monkey.
Oh. Night Monkey. What Shining do I like best? The film or the book?
No, I'm talking which version of the film. Because I'm going to surprise you and say I prefer, or at least I preferred growing up, the not Kubrick version. I don't even know who it's by.
Oh no, the Kubrick version, man.
Right.
Jack Nicholson. Yes, I tell you what, I had a really visceral experience with The Shining. I watched it when I was 16, and that kind of excitement of horror movies started to fade. I stopped watching when I was about 13. I had like a good 3-year hiatus, and then my childhood sweetheart was like, "Should we watch a scary film? Some people say The Shining's really good." And it scared the bejesus out of me. And I was like, yeah, I forgot this feeling. And it sort of rekindled the love. So The Shining has a really special place in my heart. Didn't quite make the list because these films are just ones I'm a little bit more excited to watch at the moment. But yeah, really, really good.
I don't really like Stephen King on the whole. And on that note...
Yeah, I think it's time to call it. I had a lovely time.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. It's been a blast having you chipping in and letting us know what you think and what movies you like and what you think of our things. We'll post the list in the Discord, and I hope you guys have a really awesome Halloween tomorrow.
Looking forward to all the hate and scrutiny we're going to get from the Discord when we post our whatevs.
Nobody mentioned Psycho. Oh my god.
Yeah. I thought
you say that. Our
that
Discord are the nicest people in the world. Like, for real. I thought we were going to have a horrible bunch. But
yeah.
No, I didn't. I thought we'd get a few trolls.
When we decided to make it the Discord free, we were both like, right, well, we won't post any rules to begin with, but if we get hate, we'll post rules. We had one bad apple, we made rules, and we've had nothing since then. No one has been a troll. Halloween, everyone is just the nicest. Yeah. Happy Halloween.
You guys are awesome. Have a nice night. Enjoy your Halloween, and talk to you on Discord.
Peace out.
All right, how do I end the stream? I'm going to go back to the title screen.